I said, oh my God, he did it. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, he did it. Some people still believe that people like me are not very well educated. You know, the stereotypical Mexican housekeeper.
Blanca, this may be the biggest mistake they made in the entire thing. Whoever handled the investigation, however this went down, was underestimating Blanca. For more than 2.5 years, ever since Alec Murdaugh was found guilty of killing his wife and son, I've wanted to speak to Blanca Turrubiate-Simpson. As an investigative reporter with more than 30 years of experience in the field, I knew she would have inside information about the family that no one else knew. She was Maggie's confidant. She spent a lot of time in their home and as a helper. She knew the most intimate details of their lives, down to which drawer they put their underwear in. This is the first time I've heard Blanca's full story, and she blew me away with the things she saw that investigators missed because they seem so normal. Were they asking you questions?
No,
Did they bring you in for interrogation?
no.
I counted 10 different clues about these murders, and I'm gonna walk you through those. And at the end, she drops a bomb about something called the cleaners. Why did investigators dismiss the things that Blanca noticed or witnessed? This is a mother with military training. She also interrogated gangs in the prison system. She just wrote a book called Within the House of Murdaugh, but she revealed to me several things that aren't even in the book. It was as if she was witnessing them play out in front of her again after cataloging them in her mind. I asked her, when did she notice a change in Alec?
I noticed the drastic change 2 months, about 2 months before, is when you could see a big change in him. He was no longer worried about what he would wear to go to work. He would stay in bed till 12 o'clock, or until they called him and say, hey, your client's in the office. I'm on my way. He was still in the bed. And it was a lot of behavioral changes that he had that I really was not, you know, so I just figured, well, maybe he doesn't have a case right now, so, you know, he doesn't have to go in. Or,
Yeah, he's just taking it easy.
You know, just, yeah. And he had a lot of stuff going on with his dad, too, and he was spending a lot of time with his dad at the hospital.
Because he was so sick.
Yeah, so I figured he's just kind of trying to rest up. It didn't really...
Blanca, the pills, did you know that there was something going on with him and pain pills?
Yes.
How'd you feel about that?
He functioned normal, so I didn't really think there was a big problem with it. I didn't see no change in he was functioning normal.
He was clearly on drugs that night. But by the way, several weeks later, we got him to rehab down in Georgia, I guess, to begin with. Then he went to Florida. And I saw him down there after he'd been in and talked to the doctor. The doctor said it was one of the worst withdrawal episodes he's ever seen with anybody. So he clearly was addicted to massive amounts of oxycodone.
Now, do I think he was taking as many pills as they said he was taking? No, I don't believe so.
You didn't see like piles of pills.
I did.
You did.
I did.
Did you ever ask him about it at all? Or was that like, why would that's not my business?
I never asked him about that.
Did you ever hear Maggie talking about it?
We found, the only time that me and her actually was when we found some pills under a dresser when we were on Holly Street. At first I thought maybe the boys hid him or something, you know, it had to be the boys. But then I realized that she said, I'll take care of that. And I left it at that. I didn't inquire.
In the months leading up to the double murders, Alec's life was unraveling. Alec Murdaugh was dealing with the stress of his father's illness, a civil lawsuit, and money problems. He used oxycodone to cope. His addiction was something that his wife Maggie and Paul had confronted him about multiple times. Possibly even in the hours before they died, Blanca said she found pill bags that she threw in the trash. As we get closer to June 7th, she had called you out there, Capri Suns, get some Capri Suns for Alec, but you also went in there to help with some dinner.
Oh, she said she was at the doctor's office. She sent me a message. She said, "Would you please cook? I'm not gonna make it back in time."
Right.
I left and I had already seen the package, in the refrigerator. She left it to unthaw in the fridge. So she said, "Would you mind cooking? Papa's coming." She said, "Papa's coming home."
Right.
And Alec wants him to come home so he can fix the mess out there in the fields.
Right.
And I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it. It's no big deal." And then she's like, "Papa likes the way you cook." And we spoke about that. She texted me, and I got done with what I was doing, and I started cooking. I fixed a meal, and then I forgot. I was getting ready to walk out the door. I had already sent her the message. I forgot that I had to take some stuff that she had left in the laundry room upstairs to the bunk room. Yeah. So I said, I had already sent it. I said, "Oh my gosh." I said, "Let me go back." So I went back to the laundry room. I picked up the clothes that she had left, and I took them upstairs to the bunk room. And I remember standing at the door, and I saw a tractor. The orange tractor went down the road going towards the sunflower field.
And the sunflower field was, of course, had been demolished by some weed killer or something.
Yes.
Right.
So as I'm walking out, I see the tractor going through, and while I was upstairs, I saw the white F-150 parked out front of the hangar, in the under the overhang. So when I saw the truck, I said, "Oh, Paul's home," and I left the front door unlocked because I just assumed that it was Paul.
Sure. And it was not Paul.
It was not Paul.
How do you know that?
Because I found out later during the phone records that Paul's phone was dinging in Okatee.
Okay. And Okatee is where he was working with his uncle, John Marvin.
He was like 37 miles away.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but there were 3 F-150, white F-150s that the Murdaughs owned?
John Marvin had a white F-150. Mr. Randolph had a white F-150. And Paul had a white F-150. Paul had his truck. Something was wrong with his truck, and I know he took it to Jimmy Butler in town. I never heard him say, "We're going to switch vehicles. We're going to do this. We're going to do that."
So you've got a F-150 down by the hangar, and you've got a tractor going to the fields.
Yes.
And we don't know who was driving that tractor, and we don't know who was driving that F-150.
No.
Does that bother you?
Yes.
Why does that bother you?
Because that gave way for people to make all kinds of theories about people that might not even be involved with the case at all.
Just raises too many questions.
It does, but I think they left out. In my mind, if I tell somebody I saw a vehicle, my instinct would be to go figure out where was this truck at, first with the family. Mm-hmm. Who had access to these vehicles, and then move from there to other individuals. Now, from my understanding, that was never done. It was not important, I guess. I don't know. To this day, I don't know why certain things were not thought of as being important.
And we're going to get to that too, because there's a few things on that list that might not have been discovered. Blanca believes that whoever drove the pickup and the tractor would have been prepping for the murders. Could it have been Alec? Blanca's going to give us more insight in a minute, so keep listening. And just so you know, the 2 guns that were used in the murders have never been recovered. Tell me, Blanca, what happened after that, if you're comfortable kind of telling me what happened after you made dinner. What'd you do?
I fixed dinner. I put the lids on and I left them on the stove. And I let her know that dinner was ready whenever they arrived. You know, dinner was on the stove. I even sent Alex a message and said, "Hey, dinner's on the stove. Thank you, B." That's how he usually responds.
And you had seen Alex earlier in the day. You were helping him with some clothes. Is that right?
When he got I believe he got a call, and he had to rush out of the house. But it was kind of odd to me that his pants were wrinkled. It looked like he just ran his hand through his hair. Mm-hmm. And he was like in a rush. He was standing right there in front of in the living room was a chest of drawers that was up against the wall. Mm-hmm. And so when you walk out of the master bedroom, it's like right there.
Right.
He had placed all his pocket, miscellaneous stuff, change, whatever, wallet on top of that dresser. And I usually would put his shoes right on the bottom on the floor, right next to the dresser, because I knew he would come out of the room and he would be grabbing his stuff and sliding his shoes on. So he was ready to leave. I was in the living room picking up stuff off the round table. And when I turned around, he had thrown his coat on, the blazer, the blue.
Sure. His sports jacket.
Yeah, the sports jacket. He had put it on, and he went to grab something else off the top. And when he turned, I noticed the collar was sticking up. I said, "Hey, hold up. I said, your collar's sticking up." And he's like, "Where?" So and he kind of motioned like that. So I just kind of like folded his collar and put him in his jacket, because I knew he was in a rush. He said, "All right, B, I'll see you later." And he left.
What was that? And you made dinner, put the lids on the pots so that would stay nice and warm, right? Mm-hmm. You'd made Paul's favorite. Mm-hmm. So Paul and Maggie are coming in.
Yes.
And then you go home.
I left there and I had to go get my son because I was already late picking up my son from school. So I left from there, and my regret is not checking to see who was driving that truck. I still regret it. But I was in a hurry to go get my son because I was already late. So I left out the front entrance instead of going through the kennel. But I don't know what would have happened, had I seen something. What would have happened to me? If in fact, the guns were being, placed, or, it was the person that was getting the scene ready.
Where was Alex supposed to be when that happened?
At the office.
Had he driven off in that Suburban to go to the office?
That afternoon when he left, he took a Suburban.
Is there a way that he could have been back with the F-150 back at the hangar?
There's access. I'm pretty sure that they left their keys in the vehicles, first of all. And I'm assuming the truck could have possibly been at, the law firm. Both vehicles could have been there. Both white trucks.
The what ifs, right?
There's a lot of what ifs, but it makes a lot of sense. There's family members that drove those, similar trucks to Paul's.
When did you hear what had happened?
The following morning.
What time was it?
He called me around 6 a.m, and he was crying on the phone, and he said, famous words now, "They're gone, B. They're gone." I didn't think much of it until I thought about it. I'm like, did she go back to Edisto? Mm-hmm. Did they go back to Edisto, her and Paul? He said, "No, B, they're dead." And then I know there was probably a little bit in between there where I dropped the phone, and it was like a shock. I didn't want to believe what I had just heard.
No, because there's no way to prepare yourself for something like that.
Especially when I had just talked to her the day before, and my biggest regret was usually when I would cook dinner, I would either call her or she would call me.
Like right at dinner time, like
Right
7,
after
6
she
o'clock.
would, she would call me, or later on that evening she would call me and say, hey, we ate dinner. She would always make fun of Alec, because it's like Alec would sit there and eat, and he's like, look at Fatty over there eating, and she would always have something funny to say. Well, I didn't get a text message. I didn't get a phone call, and I thought it was kind of odd. But I was gonna call that night, but I didn't, and I regret not calling her. I don't know why. I don't know what would have happened if I would have called. I don't know if I would have heard anything. I don't know if she would have pushed the phone for me to hear what was going on. I often think about things like that.
You got a call. He wanted you to come back to the house, and you went back to the house.
I went, when I got the call from him, I asked him, I said, where are you at? He said, I'm at Mom and Daddy's house. I'm at Almeda. I said, okay, I'll be right over. It doesn't take that long to get to Almeda.
Right.
But it was almost like I was in like slow motion. In my knee, I don't know if you've ever been in almost a close call in your vehicle, that your leg starts kind of like shaking. I could feel the closer I got, my leg was like shaking. The closer I got to Almeda. I pulled up to Almeda. It was just a heavy feeling in my chest. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know what to say. But I knew that I felt that was something that I had to do, because she still had one child that was there. And her husband, at that point, I did not think anything about Alex. So I knew that I had to try to be as comforting as I could, within, whatever.
Right. In your ability.
Mm-hmm. And make things comfortable for them. I got it, I walked in, one of the ladies let me in. I walked in, and she went and got Alec, because Alec was in the other room. Buster and Brooklyn were sitting on a couch right there in the den area. And when I walked in, Alex came out first, and he just started crying. And I have never heard him cry like that. He was crying sounded like a little kid crying, where they almost like lose they're crying so much when they, that they lose, they can't really talk.
Right.
And that's how he was crying. So I just, he gave me a hug. I hugged him back, and then Buster got up at that point, came to me. He hugged me. He did cry. But he immediately went back and sat down and kind of, cleaned his face.
Shock.
And, well, I knew he wasn't. Buster was very different from Paul. Buster was more reserved, and he was not, maybe around his friends, he was, he would, open up a little bit more, but Buster's always been more reserved. He's always been like that.
He's just quiet.
He just does not show emotions like that. And
you went back to the house for Alec?
Alec asked me, can you go to Moselle and straighten up? He said, Grandma and Papa T are coming, Maggie's parents, and Marion's coming, and the rest of the family. He said, can you straighten up? You know how Maggie liked her, the stuff. Can you straighten out for me? So I told him I would. I couldn't tell you what I was thinking. All I wanted to do was make sure that everything was in place when her mother and her father arrived. Her mother had just had knee surgery. I knew she was, she was still recovering. And I wanted to make things just as easy for them in the situation, that was going on. I wasn't thinking about anything else. The thought never occurred to me until later when I went to trial and people were saying, well, she cleaned up. It did dawn on me at that point, yeah, I did straighten up, But if you would have been in my shoes, you would have been thinking the same thing I was. Make it as comfortable for her family when they arrive. I wasn't thinking straight, I just wanted to make them comfortable.
I want to stop here. Blanca was raked over the coals for cleaning up that house, but it wasn't a crime scene. You heard her say she was able to drive right up and open the door. But she wasn't the first one to go to the house after the murders. About a dozen friends and family, including several attorneys that Alec called, came to the home the night of the murders. Why wasn't this considered part of the crime scene and taped off? Blanca found some strange things inside.
Well, and honestly, that's not your job to be thinking about that. That was, if the investigators had an issue with you going in the house, I would think they would have said something to you.
Nobody said anything. When I drove up, my normal, I pulled up. When I'm pulling up, I'm looking around to see if I see anybody there. There was a police car. The last tree on the right-hand side of the driveway, there was a police car there, or a deputy car. I pulled up to the front, and I looked over. Maggie's car was to the right, which I thought was kind of odd, but I straightened myself out and got out of the truck, and then I got to the front door, and I stumbled with my keys to try to get the door unlocked. Once I got the door unlocked, I walked in, I closed the door behind me, and as I'm standing there, I heard the ice maker dropping the cubes. But that's when, the house was kept cold. But it felt so different. Mm-hmm. It just felt odd. And I kind of had to straighten myself out at that point because I knew that I was never going to see her walking with her clunky house shoes. In the morning, when I arrived, and that I was going to be fussing at Paul, just leaving his stuff his clothes or his shoes all over the place. You'd walk through the front door and Paul would leave his boot, sock, and whatever, shirt or whatever, he'd just drop it. But that was who he was. And I didn't, like I said, Paul, that was just him. But it was just something different. But I wasn't in a set of mind where I wanted to. At that point, it was like my feelings were in the back. I had to make sure that the house was going to be ready for her parents, because I wanted to make it as comfortable as I possibly could under the circumstances for them.
Blanca, you said that when you came in, you saw her car parked to the right. Why did that bother you?
Because Maggie used to pull up to the left.
Always?
Mm-hmm.
And that car was on the right?
Every once in a while, I can tell you, she tried to change where everybody parked one time and said, we're all parking to the right and park our vehicles a certain way. It didn't work. Paul would pull up straight to his usual spot, straight up. Maggie would always pull up to the left. If Buster was there, he would pull up to the right. And then I would either pull up right next to Buster's truck, or I would pull up right next to the kitchen entrance if Alex wasn't there with my truck.
Did anybody explain to you why that car was parked on the right?
Nobody said anything.
And then you go inside and you go into the kitchen to see what's going on, right? You go into the kitchen, or do you go into the bedroom?
When I walked a little bit further in, there was a wall right here. There was an arch, and it would take you into the, well, not an arch, but an opening going into the dining room. And there was a wall right there. I don't know if you've seen the picture of it's a bench with like a calf fur on it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, once you pass that, the wall, there was a big opening and you could see into the kitchen. Well, as I walked further in, I turned and I looked in the living room first, and I was like, well, this is odd. There's no cups, no plates, no nothing in the living room. So I thought that was kind of odd, because usually I would find a cup or a plate on the living room, and the spit cup, because he always had the spit cup.
Because he dipped.
Yeah. And
so that wasn't in there.
None of that was there. Everything was cleaned off in the living room. And then I turned over to the kitchen and I looked and I was like, well, where are the pots? That was unusual. So I was like, well, what is going on? I didn't know what was going on at that moment.
Did anybody ever tell you where those pots, why they were not where they were supposed to be?
I found out during the trial that Mark Ball had put the pots in the refrigerator. And there was kind of like some comment was made about it had to be a man that put the pots in the fridge.
Right.
And then come to find out, I think Mark Ball said he put the lids on them and put them in the fridge. And a lot of women were commenting about it had to be a man that put the pots in the refrigerator with the lids on top,
Yeah, exactly.
And like I said, I found out later. I didn't know at that point. I had no idea that people had been in that house that night.
And you go in to start straightening things up. What do you find in the bedroom and the bathroom?
When I first arrived, I looked at the things that were wrong, and then I walked to the laundry room. I was going to drop off my keys and my phone. And when I walked through the kitchen, if you look to your left, there was the door to the porch, and then the door entrance to the laundry room. Her pajamas were on the floor in the middle of the doorway, laid out. And to me, that was really significant, because I was like, who did this? Maggie wouldn't do that. She would have never done that. That was just not her.
Why would you put your pajamas on the floor?
I don't know. To this day, I often wonder why they were in the middle of the floor like that. Even if she got dressed or, in a hurry, which is, I heard something about she could have possibly, she was in her pajamas, she got dressed in a hurry to go out there because they were talking about gunshots. She could have heard them. That was one of the scenarios that I had heard. And I was like, even if she would have gotten dressed in a hurry, her pajamas would have probably been a little pile. I can understand a little pile right there where she changed in a hurry. But that just didn't make sense to me.
And the other thing is that she did not normally wear underclothes, right? When she went to bed, she didn't wear underwear.
She did not.
And they were sitting right there.
When I finally got my grip, I went and I knew I had to pick the stuff up. And I pulled the top, and as soon as I took the top, I looked and I saw her panties, and I was like, no, this was definitely not Maggie. I knew. I knew instantly that was not. And I remember asking law enforcement if anybody had taken a picture of that. And they're like, well, what is the significance? I said, somebody was in the laundry room. I said, somebody went in the laundry room. I said, that was set up. Well, how do you know? I said, and I tried to explain it. But
and nothing. What did they say to you?
Nobody. They never executed a search warrant for the house. So there is no photographs. They allowed the family to go in the home. I was not aware of people going in and out of the house that night. I did not become aware until later.
Why is that strange to you, Blanca?
Because it's on the property. Mm-hmm. The house is part of the kennels. Common sense. nobody goes in and out, you have to go find somewhere else to go. At least for us regular people, if something happens on our property, you cannot go in your home. You cannot go anywhere near it. You have to find somewhere else to go. And that didn't happen.
It was part of the crime scene.
To me, it's part of the crime scene. How do you not know whether there's stuff there? How do you not know if there's, if whoever, at that point you didn't know who the killer was. How do you not know that killer's not there? How do you not know that there's weapons? You know, there was so many questions. But when I heard that there was that the search warrant was not executed, it upset me, because I was accused of cleaning, straightening out, putting stuff away, and that I somehow helped, you know, in all of that. And it did upset me, because I was like, it's so easy to deflect everything on me than to admit your faults
And take
and your
responsibility.
mistakes. And I became the fault person in front of the whole world. I was the one that cleaned, that I washed, that I, you know, straightened everything out. What about the others that were there the night before that should have known better? And nobody said anything about any of them that were there.
There was a bunch of attorneys.
My point exactly.
My other question, if there were all those people in that house, would anybody have gone near the laundry room or no?
Whoever put the pots in the refrigerator. But somehow or another, my regret is that I should have, my instinct told me, take pictures of what I saw.
What else did you see that struck you as unusual in that house? Because we heard a lot about, like, the khaki pants, the T-shirt. Tell me why the significance of those things.
The T-shirt that he was wearing when he called 911 was in the laundry room. I had washed it. I had washed it along with the towels that I placed on the top shelf, ready to go to Edisto. The T-shirt was hanging because I hadn't had time to press it. Usually I would press all the T-shirts and put them away in his drawers or up in the shelf in the closet.
Right.
I didn't get a chance to do it, and it was only one shirt, so I figured I'll take care of it, you know, the next day. So I took everything out and I hung it up in the laundry room, where I used to hang a lot of the clothes, so that way they weren't as wrinkled. You know, when you pull them out of the dryer, if I would hang them up, they wouldn't be as wrinkled.
Sure.
So it made it a lot easier. And, you know, the T-shirt.
Couple of things about that white shirt. Alec was very particular about his clothes. He only wore T-shirts that were ironed. Him grabbing that T-shirt from the laundry room tells us several things. 1, he strayed from his normal habits. 2, he was in a hurry grabbing a shirt from the laundry room. 3, it puts him in the laundry room where Maggie's pajamas were staged. 4, he changed the clothes he was seen on video wearing just a couple of hours earlier.
I just, the bathroom, when I walked in the bathroom, I was looking, I saw the khaki pants, there was a puddle of water, a white towel, and then Maggie had a little small pile of clothes, like usually when you take your clothes off and you change, there's a pile of clothes right there by the bathtub. And then inside the master closet was another white damp towel and a white T-shirt.
Why did that bother you?
In the beginning, it didn't bother me. It bothered me when people started accusing me of. That's when it bothered me, and I figured, well, do you all not know that I'm not in a law enforcement capacity? I just tried to make things as comfortable for her parents. I just assumed that they had already gone through the house, checked the house, I had no knowledge that that the search warrant had not been executed on the house. I had no knowledge.
Do you think that T-shirt had something to do? Can you tell me what the significance of like the T-shirt? I remember hearing about the T-shirt that fell, and you saw that it had fallen down. What significance do you put on that?
The T-shirt that fell out of the closet, I know he packed the bag that night when they left Moselle. So it's very reasonable that he reached up there and grabbed a couple of his T-shirts that were up on the shelf, and it fell. One of them fell. So that's reasonable. The towel, I don't know how to explain it. All I can say is, that there was another towel in there. I don't know. There was no water on the floor or whatever tracking anything there. The only puddle was right there in front of the shower.
What, when we started hearing about what had happened, and you were talking to the investigators, I mean, they were just swirling around the place, right? Mm-hmm. Were they asking you questions?
No.
Did they bring you in for interrogation?
No. I saw an investigator going into Paul's room, and I saw her walking. It was kind of looks like a bridge. I don't know what you call it, but from one room to the other. And she was coming out of the room. I saw her. Later on, I saw other officers through there, but nobody ever.
And I remember
they didn't ask me anything.
You said that they asked you if you did wash the clothes, and you said yes, but you didn't wash the clothes for like weeks. Because you were waiting?
I figured they were going to ask me at one point or another, they were going to ask me for the clothes. But nobody approached me about anything. So I just left them there. I figured I'm not. But during the trial, the only thing I was asked is if I washed the clothes, and I said yes. They never asked me, when did you wash the clothes? And that's where people were saying that I washed evidence.
Let me put it this way. Did you see any blood on those khaki pants?
No, sir.
You washed them, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you put anything on them to get blood stains out? I mean, would there be...
Are you been saying that I removed blood stains off of khaki pants?
I'm asking you rhetorically. I'm asking you, did you see any blood stains?
There appeared to be no blood stains on those pants.
Okay.
I didn't
wash anything.
I didn't wash nothing.
Can I ask you, did Alec change clothes a lot? Because it sounds like there were a lot of clothing changes that day for whatever reason.
He didn't like getting sweaty. He just didn't like it. And if it was hot out, and he would. But I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't there. I just knew what I would find, the next day when I would go in there. Not that I was there in the evenings. As far as him, that's the only reason that I know that, he changed if he got sweaty or he got dirty, based on the clothing items that were left behind for the next day. But
so you are privy to watching. They're not bringing you in to look at interrogation video.
No.
You're not looking at stuff behind the scenes of what's going on. There was an aha moment for you in this, wasn't there?
Yes.
Can you explain that aha moment to me?
The towel in the Suburban.
Yeah.
When the Officer Green's body cam video was released, my husband had asked me, he said, hey, the body cam video was released. Do you want to watch it? And I was hesitant at first. He said, I think you need to watch it. So I said, okay. So I finally agreed, and I sat down and I started watching it.
What unit's 23 on Moselle?
And I was listening to everything that was going on, and I was just watching.
This is your wife and son?
And son.
Okay.
It's bad. It's bad. Check the pulses.
Yes, sir. This is the firearm you brought from inside the house?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I went and got. This is a long story. My son was in a boat wreck a few months back. He's been getting threats. Most of it's been benign stuff we didn't take serious.
Okay.
You know, he's been getting like punched. I know that's somebody. I know that's what it is.
And it was upsetting to
When did you
see
get home? Right when you called?
so many people out there.
Well, the dad's over there. Actually, hold on. Some people just walked up.
Fire rescue might have some more sheets we can steal.
That's right. It shouldn't be about 550 law enforcement.
There is law enforcement back there.
Just, I don't care how they, and I guess I don't care anymore what they say about me. All I can say is there was no need for all them people to be out there trampling all over the place. Other than trying to make yourselves look good and, you know, for that family, for the Murdaugh family.
Y'all familiar with this family?
I wasn't until he told me the names.
I'll fill you in later.
And I know I'm going to get a lot of, I'm probably going to get some hate over this. But I got enough hate already. You know, putting up with the accusations, all the allegations that were made towards me. I'm not the one responsible for executing a search warrant. I was not responsible for that. I'm not in a law enforcement capacity. But I do know that there's certain things that you do, common things.
That didn't happen.
There was too many people trying to solve, from what I saw in that video, there was too many people trying to be so helpful and
Important.
just trying to look important, it's almost like everybody wanted to break the case, you know, to solve the case. And nobody was, I don't care how they try to explain it or what they try to say. First of all, the first officer on the scene, I think he did what he was supposed to, but when you have people in certain positions, it's almost like things change for some reason. I guess it depends on who the person is. I just saw too many inconsistencies, it was a different way in the way that law enforcement handle any other murder compared to that murder.
Blanca, what did you see on that body cam?
When Officer Green, like I said, it was infuriating watching all the officers walking around and trying to be helpful. Perhaps, you know, they were trying to do their job. I didn't. But I remember he briefly turned I don't know if he briefly turned, but the camera position looking inside Alex, the Suburban, inside the Suburban. And it's like he just briefly turned around and I saw the Suburban, the door was open, and I saw the towel in the truck. And I remember I stood up and I told my husband, I said, go back, go back, go back. He's like, what is it? I said, oh my God, he did it. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, he did it. And he's like, what are you talking about? My husband still didn't know. I said, that towel came out of the laundry room. I said, that shirt came out of the laundry room. Because we were sitting there I kept going back to see if there was the iron, you know, the press marks.
Yeah.
Where I would press the shirts and fold them. And you could see the iron marks. And I went back. You couldn't see none of that. I said, oh my God, he did it. And he's like, what are you talking about? You don't know any. I said, that towel was in there. And then I just started kind of putting two and two together, the noise of the water hose. You know, the water was running in the background.
Right.
Just a lot of things that I kind of sat back and I was kind of listening to watching, you know, I watched some of the video and then I would listen.
In her book, Blanca explains that on the 911 call, she can hear the dogs barking. She says the dogs would not have barked like that if Alec was on his own because they knew him. She also heard water running, and she thinks someone was hosing down evidence. She could tell which hose it was, and she said that hose had a strong nozzle and someone would have had to hold on to it.
And I would tell my husband, this isn't right. I don't care how they're portraying it. I said, that's not right.
So that towel never got tested as far as you know?
I don't know what happened to that towel.
Never saw it again?
Mm-mm. I don't know what happened. I don't know. I don't know.
And those clothes that he wore, that collar that you helped put up or down that had been sticking up, did you ever see those clothes again?
No.
And that came out in the testimony, that those clothes just vanished.
Mm-hmm.
That towel just vanished.
I saw the look on his face when I said that. I saw the look on Alec's face. He had two very similar shirts, almost identical. One was a little bit older than the other one.
Whether there was a shirt there also, you said you couldn't remember. Is that correct?
With regard to?
Whether there was a shirt with the khakis on the floor. You said, I couldn't remember.
I could not remember whether there was a shirt with a khaki pants. All I remember is a white damp towel sitting there.
Okay, and the khaki pants.
Yes, sir.
But you don't remember whether, and I think you told the grand jury, I don't remember whether it was a shirt or wasn't a shirt, correct?
That is correct.
And that's today. You can't tell this jury there wasn't a shirt on the floor. You just can't, you can tell them you don't remember, correct?
What was your question?
You can't tell this jury there wasn't a shirt on the floor because you can't remember whether there was a shirt on the floor or not. Isn't that what you told the grand jury?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I knew the clothing. They made fun because they said that I didn't know my name brands. I knew the name brands. I mean, I knew the clothing that he had in there. But there was one, but the other one was not there.
You so eloquently in your retelling of all of this lay out for us why you think Alec did not do this by himself. Tell me why he didn't do this by himself.
When Paul was documenting the kennel video, the one that Paul recorded.
Right.
You don't hear the other dogs.
Get back. Get back.
You don't hear. You might hear a little squeak here, a little, but you don't hear the dogs barking at all. When Maggie talks about he's got a bird in his mouth, it's a guinea.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear the other dogs.
Hey, he's got a bird in his mouth. Bubba. Hey, Bubba. That's a guinea. This is a chicken.
However, if you hear the 911 call, when I hear the 911 call.
Congressman, I have an Alex Murdaugh on the line, caller from 4147 Moselle Road. He's advising that his wife and child was shot.
Okay, and sir, give me the address again.
It's 4147 Moselle Road. I've been up to it now. It's bad.
Okay, how did they shoot? Did they shoot themselves?
Oh, no. Hell no.
Okay, and are they breathing?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and you said it's your wife and your son?
My wife and my son.
Are they in a vehicle?
No, ma'am. They're on the ground out at my kennel.
I actually, maybe it's me, but I hear door slam. In the beginning of that, you can hear like a door, like doors, car doors slam or close. The dogs are going crazy.
Oh, man. Oh, should have known.
And then the fact that even though they brought it up in trial, what were you referring to when he said here? In his 911 call, when he's on the phone with the dispatcher?
Mm-hmm.
And they tried, when they emphasized that during the court, during the trial, when Jim Griffin asked him, well, what were you talking? It's like he was leading him into the answer.
Is there any guns near them at all?
No, there's here.
What color is your house on the outside?
If that's what you're asking, they didn't shoot themselves, ma'am.
What?
Alec, right in there, you say the word here. What, are you calling anybody or anything?
No, I'm talking to that dispatcher.
And what did you mean when you said here?
If you listen to that call, one of the first things she asked me, was, did they shoot themselves? And I knew there's no way. I mean, I knew they didn't shoot themselves. There wasn't a gun. They didn't shoot themselves. And she'd asked me that. And then she asked me another question, something about that. And you hear me say here, and then you hear the thing talking. I'm telling her here, and then I say something, and then you hear me say, if that's what you're asking. And I'm letting her know they didn't shoot themselves. I'm saying here, and then I give her an explanation, which you can't hear on that phone, but it's obvious to me what I'm doing. And I say, if that's what you're asking me. So, like David Owens asked me on August 11th, did I call a dog or was I talking to somebody? There was no dog that was out, and there was nobody there.
You know, well, you were talking to the dispatcher, you know, that's why you said here. But if you look at the relevance of here to what the dispatcher was asking,
right,
it makes no sense.
Why would he say here?
And he never really answered the question.
Okay.
He never really, to me, he didn't answer it. He rambled on about other things, but he did not answer why he said here. And to me, he was handing something to...
He was saying here. Mm-hmm. To somebody that was there.
Yeah, it kind of slipped out. I believe it slipped out. And I don't know, maybe he kind of was hoping nobody heard it.
So you've got that. You've got this 911 call where you actually hear him say here. Mm-hmm. And then why are the level of what was going on at the time? You talk about how that would have been a superhuman feat to clean all that up, right?
There's just no way. There's just no way. I mean, Maggie's car, the golf cart, cleaning yourself up, getting rid of the weapons. It's too much. There's just no way. And then even though it's not a long distance to the house, it still takes you, some time to, to get
mm-hmm.
to the house. And in the golf cart. Mm-mm. And then somebody moved her car. Somebody drove that car back. It wasn't Maggie.
Did you ever ask the investigators if somebody had moved that car? Or was the car up there when they got there?
The car was already by the house. There was some weird things, that went on when we were there.
Yeah.
It was just...
Why do you think there were weird things going on?
Shortly, we had an incident where somebody tried to sneak on the property the first night we were there.
Oh, really?
So the next day I went...
Like a nosy neighbor?
Yes.
Or,
they had backed up completely up to... There was a tractor in the driveway. So they couldn't come on the property because the tractor was blocking the road,
uh-huh.
The driveway to come
right.
So they backed completely up towards the tractor. And they were trying to, when I remember I walked outside and I heard the hound and one of the Tappy Toes, the other dog. I heard him barking, and then I told my husband, I said, let's go. I said, somebody's on the property. He's like, what do you mean? I said, the dogs are telling us somebody's on the property. How do you know? Maybe it's an animal. I said, there's somebody on the property. And he said, okay. So he jumped in one truck. I jumped in another. And
there was somebody trying to get on the property.
There was somebody out there trying to get on the property. But the hound had a specific way that she would alert you. Her name was Dahlia.
Dahlia.
And she just had a certain way that she would alert you.
Did you ever, were you scared for your safety when you were out there?
In the next day after that happened, I went and I got cameras and I got motion sensors and I got I got not only for the outside cameras for the outside, I also got Ring cameras for inside the house, one for outside that I would place outside, just to make sure. And we didn't sleep in any of the bedrooms. We slept in the living room.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. I didn't feel, not that Alec told me, whatever,
wherever you need to be.
Wherever you needed. He gave me full reign of whatever I needed to do at the house. He never once said, no, you can't. He said, I'm not going to return. So you and Michael, he said, you and Mike take care of it.
Do what you need to do.
Yeah.
But you were in the living room because it just didn't feel right.
It wasn't, it wasn't my home. I was there to take care of the home. And I was there to make sure that nobody came and tried to
do anything.
Yeah.
You talk about having to clean her car.
Mm-hmm.
And when you went to go, you, I guess, picked it up for the impound. And when you picked up the car and were getting it cleaned, what did you find?
I actually brought it back and I parked it. And I remember I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and clean it up. And Alec had asked me to clean it up because he was going to. So I started cleaning out the car, moving on, her stuff. What was left in there was a couple of pillows and some paint. She had some candles and her shoes were still in there. And bills or papers, on the floor of the car. So I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and clean it up. I started picking it up. I put everything in a bag. And once I took all the stuff that was in the car, I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and, I brought the vacuum out and I was going to clean up, vacuum it out. So when I pushed the seat back, the driver's seat back, I looked down because I was ready to move the mat. And when I picked up the mat, her wedding band was right there between the console and the driver's seat on the floor.
Why?
I don't know. My inclination is the person who drove her car back to the house either took the ring off her finger, trying to make it look like a robbery, or they had other intentions with it. I don't know. But
obviously it dropped.
To me, it makes sense that whoever it was that took that ring off her finger was possibly trying to put it in like a side pocket, cargo pocket or something. Mm-hmm. And it fell.
And it fell.
And it fell. So to me, the person that drove that Mercedes from the hangar back to the house after the murders possibly tried to take her rings.
Why do you think, you say it and you talk about it in the book, but why do you think that they didn't take all the rings?
Her rings were tied on her fingers. And
it was hot that night.
Mm-hmm. Her rings were tied on her fingers, and they could have gotten spooked, by something, a noise or whatever.
But it's interesting the way you talk about it, because you don't talk about it as in Alec, the sole shooter, the way they set this whole scenario up and all of the... No, you don't. You don't see it like that.
I don't. I do not. He definitely had help. And when he's standing there talking to Officer Green, you can see the marks right behind him, going towards where the pallet.
When I talked to Creighton Waters just a few weeks ago, I said to him, Creighton, do we really think this was just Alec? And he said, I think something to the effect of, bring me the evidence and we'll go after him.
We, as prosecutors, have a very high and strong obligation to seek justice. And, in this particular case, I think you saw it play out on the stand, the extremely exhaustive investigation that was done. And I will just say this, that if we have evidence that somebody committed a crime, then I think, it's pretty clear that we're not scared to bring charges. So I'll just leave it at that.
Do they need to be looking?
I think so. I do.
Was it just too clear cut the way we did it? Was it just like, get Alec and we're done? I'm not saying they did anything wrong at all, but I'm just saying, when you're trying to build a case, was this done to get us a guilty verdict?
I think you have to have, what is it called, probable cause to subpoena records. And if you don't have that, you can't subpoena phone records from other individuals. So I think that had a lot to do with it as well. You have to prove, that you need those records.
Sure.
There's just some things that I think they need to look at closer that don't make sense, and maybe perhaps they can see where I'm coming from. I know the individuals. I'm not gonna name names because I would be, I'm not gonna name names. I know who they are. I know who I believe was out there. I maybe I'm wrong, but I am almost positive, based on things that I noticed, based on things that I saw, based on...
What did you see?
They need to answer how soon people started arriving on the property, how quickly, the distance they traveled, what direction did they come in, who showed up, what the time that people started showing up on that property right after it happened, the distance they traveled and how long it took them to get there, phone records to show the pinging where they were at.
Who are you talking about?
The cleaners. I call them the cleaners.
But you know who the cleaners are?
Mm-hmm. I have a very good idea who they are. And if he calls me for me to tell him, I'm pretty sure he knows who I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure he does.
And you mean he is Creighton?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But there's some things that don't make sense to me. Direction, position of vehicles, that are just not, they're not vibing with me right now. And they haven't from the very get-go.
Blanca, do you think there's a reason why you weren't talked to? Or do you think it was just an oversight?
I don't think they really, I don't think they probably thought I didn't,
The person who spent the most amount of time with the Murdaugh family every day wouldn't know.
This is the South.
It's amazing.
This is the South.
It's amazing.
And unfortunately, some people still believe that people like me are not very well educated. And it's unfortunate, but it is the truth, you know, that we don't have the expertise, or we don't have the knowledge, or we're not, you know, that we don't have the mentality, you know, the stereotypical Mexican housekeeper. And
Blanca, this may be the biggest mistake they made in the entire thing. Whoever the cleaners are, whoever handled the investigation, however this went down, was underestimating Blanca.
I believe that. Well, I don't know what they were thinking, to tell you the truth. Had they, I know on paper and in discussions, many have said that Deputy Laura Rutland, was the lead investigator. I don't think they allowed her to do her job. She was the only one that was not familiar with the family. And I think had they allowed her to do her job, with her not knowing the family, I think the right questions would have been asked. And there wouldn't have been so much walking on eggshells, as you know, or being so
too respectful.
Exactly. If you have a job to do, you have a job to do, and I'm sorry if you don't. But all that catering and all that courtesies and all of the extra law enforcement, you know, or higher people that were there, that same courtesy is not afforded to regular people like me or regular citizens in the community. And they can say whatever they want, but people have been murdered in Colleton, Hampton, Allendale counties. And how many times have those individuals showed up for that? No, it doesn't happen. That's what you mean. And power and privilege, unfortunately, had a lot to do with that. And
Blanca, who are the cleaners?
I'm not gonna.
You can't say.
Mm-mm.
And why do you feel like you can't say?
Because it would probably put my life in danger.
That's what I figured. And I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. But I do want to know if you think we're going to get to justice on this. Do you think that the truth will come out?
If one day they decide to have a conscience and come forward, perhaps.
Do you think there's anything buried out there?
No.
Do you think there was any attempt to bury anything out there?
No.
Because you talk in the book about the tractor being able to, the excavation.
Maybe like a temporary thing to kind of throw people off. Because the possibility of drones was, you know, the family knew the drones were going to be out there. It's a new thing. So to cover up something, possibly, but it was just maybe like a temporary thing. I don't think it was...
just to get rid of evidence at the moment?
At the moment.
Got it.
You know, at the moment.
Guns?
Possibly,
clothes?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Blood?
But there's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 entrances to the property. Not just the front and the kennel. Past the kennels, in that direction, there's an entrance that way that would bring you all the way to the back of the property. All the way through the field, and it would bring you to the edge where there's a big old hole where they were trying to make a pond. It would bring you all the way right there. You come across, and it brings you all the way to the back of the house. Then you got the kennel entrance, you got the front entrance, and then past that entrance is another entrance. And that entrance brings you all the way in to the edge of that field. But if you go behind that field, there's a road, there was a small road that would take you almost all the way to the edge of the field that was right there next to the house.
So totally accessible.
Very much. If people that know the property, that have been out there, they know what I'm saying. That there is, and the property was huge. There was so many. There was a big hole with a bunch of contractor stuff and appliances and all kinds of stuff right there before you got to the sunflower field on the left. No mention was that. I never saw anybody going in there to look. So there were so many places. I understand completely when David Owens said that when he saw how big the property was, that he knew, it was going to be a big
This was
job
a
at hand.
huge investigation.
Blanca believes that these murders were premeditated, that Alec had a plan to frame the groundskeeper who Paul was mad at. The groundskeeper had sprayed weed killer on the sunflowers, and the two had never really gotten along. Alec sent a text message to CB Rowe at about 7:18 p.m. and told him to give him a call the night of the murders, but he never answered. Blanca thought that was his plan to get Rowe to the kennels. So he had to come up with another reason of why someone would want to kill Paul and Maggie. And since Paul had just gotten punched that weekend in Charleston over the boat crash, you can hear him tell Officer Green on the body cam, Paul must have been targeted.
He's been getting threats. Most of it's been benign stuff we didn't take serious.
Okay.
He's been getting punched. I know that's somebody. I know that's what it is.
Neither worked because the kennel video placed Alec with Paul and Maggie minutes before they died. Several jurors spoke out and said that's what made them decide he was guilty. All because a dog had a chicken or a guinea in his mouth. And that dog is Bubba. And Bubba lives with Blanca. The only comment that Prosecutor John Metters made to me after the verdict was, God bless Bubba. We'll be releasing an episode on Bubba soon, so be sure to like and subscribe to Criminally Obsessed so you don't miss it.